Welcome to the International Collective of Female Cinematographers podcast, where every week we will be talking to a different cinematographer and listening to their stories as they navigate the filmmaking world, sharing secrets and experiences to empower our community. The ICFC is a collective of professional female cinematographers from around the world who provide each other with community support and industry advocacy. We are your hosts, Emilia and Akina.
Today we are so excited to welcome Sophia Stieglitz. We'll be discussing working as a cinematographer in Mexico, the influence of interpersonal relationships in our careers, and how she became one of the founders behind Amazonas Electricas, an all-female crew of Latina gaffers and electricians operating out of Mexico.
This is part one of our interview with Sophia Stieglitz. Okay, thank you so much, Sophia, for joining us today. So let's start out with the basics. Tell us how you became a filmmaker and how you became a DP specifically.
When I was a child, my parents were actors in the Mexican film industry. My father had already been working for over 20 years, and my mom was just starting, but they were very involved in that type of like actor lifestyle, right? So you would skip school, go to different sets with them, different countries, and I really loved the filmmaking process growing up. I would like go to the art department and try to help, go to the wardrobe and try to help. Would get these little like small parts that they would put me in, or would be an extra, or like there was some roles I did do some child acting. I think it's 7 films.
Oh wow.
Yes, but I always liked to be sitting at the camera. I felt that was my favorite spot. So I had heard about the London Film School and I was a child, so I would kind of like dream about these scenarios in which I could go study film school in London. Mm-hmm. And back then we had like this old computer and I looked it up and you could actually request an application package online. You couldn't apply online back then. This was like in 92, 93, but you could apply to get a package. So I applied to get a package, got it, and tried to apply to London Film School when I was like 7 years old. The dean wrote me a letter that I still hold with much like nostalgia and care, and they basically said I was too young to go and that I could continue my development in film in other ways, like reading and writing. So when my mom saw that this had happened, she decided to put me in like a children's photography course, and I got to build my first stand-up camera and then really got into it. My father had this like Super 8 video camera that he gave me, and it became my favorite toy. So we would, instead of playing Barbies or Legos, we would actually use all the toys to make movies, and I would like partner up with my cousins and we would make all these crazy explosions and burn the toys, have a story, cut to commercials. And then we would actually like charge money to the family to come watch the films. So we had the whole exhibitor production exhibition cycle.
Yeah, you were running your own little studio.
Yeah. And just from there kind of grew up and always knew I wanted to be a filmmaker. And eventually was able to go to film school and really loved. I think it was that question we all kind of ask ourselves when we decide to be filmmakers, like what kind of filmmaker, you know, what's my role in this? And I would dream a lot about being a director, but I really connected so much to the camera and to the process of cinematography that by the time I was deciding what I wanted to study in college and university and all that, I had already been to a high school that had like a dark room, and we were still studying like analog photography and all of that. So it was a kind of natural moment for me when I was like, being a DP, a cinematographer is amazing. You get to travel, you get to hop on a lot of projects. And I realized that for directors, it was a slower process. And I kind of felt I was good at it, at being a camera, and that I could really like learn more and keep developing in that area. And that's when I decided I wanted to be a cinematographer and moved to Barcelona and studied undergrad in cinematography there.
Awesome. So I know that you eventually ended up at AFI and then ended back in Mexico, where you're originally from. Can you talk a little bit about the decision to, work in Mexico and what it's like to work as a cinematographer internationally, not in the United States, or mainly in the United States?
The decision was hard for me because in that moment, my partner, that was also an artist living in LA, she was like, if you go back, you're failing. If you don't make it in LA, you're giving up and you're going back. And it was really rough for me to see that kind of feedback, right? From a close relationship. And I'm not saying it was healthy at all, but it was like a rough time emotionally for me. But I kind of did feel empowered and strong about the decision because I was working a lot as a gaffer in that moment in Los Angeles. My cinematography jobs were really like small commercials with not that much budget. And suddenly I started getting called to Mexico for bigger projects and more responsibilities, more budgets, brands that have more outreach and that actually kind of let you have more creative or like that the creativity is really like important. So that's when I decided that I would move back, that it would be good for my career to have, in a way, like bigger projects, to have a better curriculum. And that was, I think, thinking like 7 years ago. So throughout these 7 years, I've had some opportunities in the United States as well as in Mexico. And I think having that possibility, because I have a dual citizenship, I have both the American and the Mexican nationalities. And that's like a privilege that I can really use to develop as a female cinematographer from a Latin country in both countries.
Yeah.
And not take that for granted, right? Because it's like, as artists, we're always struggling with the work visas in other places. And like to work in London is really hard, for example, right? So you have to be invited by a big production, and it's always very complex to work internationally because of the work visas. And especially when you're up and coming. If you're already cinematographer or a filmmaker that is very established, then it's a different story, right? Everything, money moves everything really quickly. But when you're up and coming, you're still in the hustle. And that was a decision that I really love, that I made back then. I still think sometimes like, oh, should I move here? Should I move there? Sometimes I'm like, you know what? I have to fly to New York because if not, I'm not going to close this job. And like, it's a lot of investment too, and like betting on projects that you might not get, spending the money that you've made that you have to pay rent with. So definitely like an expensive lifestyle in that sense. But I feel we have to kind of bet everything in what we love, right? So, and as female cinematographers or like women cinematographers from Latin countries, that I think you totally get this because you're from Ecuador. Yeah. That struggle and that fight is totally worth it because we love it. And I don't see another alternative, right? It's like we have to work harder. And that's the way that we're going to continue.
Need to hire a cinematographer? Well, look no further than the ICFC's member online database. We boast over 300 highly qualified cinematographers for all your filmmaking needs. Visit our site now and find your next superstar collaborator at icscfilm.com.
I was wondering, when you finished school and you were thinking about moving back to Mexico, how did you maintain a network in Mexico, or did you always have one? You said that you got offered big jobs in Mexico, but did you have groups of people that you worked with, collaborators there already, or had you always had that?
No, that's a really interesting question, because when I left Mexico to study in Spain and came back, I didn't go to a Mexican film school. So when I did come back, I was like, oh, I don't have a community. I had some that I had met in Europe and that we all kind of went back. And I did have some work with that community, but I felt really separated from the Mexican community. And I talked to an ASC member called Henry Hoffman. He was the dean at one of the two main film schools in Mexico, of the public ones that are have a great level. The two public film schools are considered the two best film schools in Mexico. So he was like, oh, you don't have a community here. That's why you're struggling. Because I was like, I'm not getting films. I'm not getting jobs. What's going on? And I was becoming and operating for other DPs, and I was shooting some stuff, and I was hustling, but at the same time didn't feel I was getting features. That is, for me, the dream, and for a lot of us.
Yeah.
So it took me a couple of years, but that's when I decided I wanted to go to AFI. And he was actually the one that kind of gave me that seed. He was like, you know what? I think AFI might be a great place for you because you could create community over there. The community here is already going to be really hard for them to accept you. But if you go to LA, things will change. And in Mexico, we have this thing called... It's a modern concept that comes from a very ancient story. We call it Malinchismo.
Oh, yeah.
And La Malinche was this woman that allied with the Spaniards, with Cortés, when the colonization happened in the Conquista. So years later, historians and books and everything, everybody has studied that story about how this woman... But she was a very smart woman, right? That's a patriarchal view on Mexican history in a way, because they're like, oh, she's a traitor. But in reality, she was a slave. She was sold. She was like a young girl, a child. So because she was a slave and was sold through different communities, she learned different languages, and she was really smart. So by the time Cortés frees her from one of these communities that had her as a prisoner and as a slave, he realizes that she has this ability for language and uses her as her translator, as his translator. So years later, there's this concept in Mexico that Malinchismo is it's kind of like the hipster movement in a way. It's like, oh, if it's American culture, then it's okay.
Yeah.
And if it's foreign, and if foreign people accept you, then you're cool. And a lot of cinematographers from even back in the day, I mean, I've had this type of conversation with Guillermo Navarro, for example, right? That is a very established cinematographer for many decades. And he also felt like that he had to leave his country to be appreciated. And it's just still happening. So I didn't think of it like that back in the day. But now that I reflect upon it, I realize that it does have something to do, working in Los Angeles and Hollywood and going to AFI. All these things give you experience, but they also give you prestige. And sadly, the society, modern society, kind of has these moral compasses and ways that I do feel that that was like going back and circling to close the question. One of the main reasons I was getting good work here was because I was in LA and because I was coming out of AFI. I did kind of network in a way when I was in Mexico before leaving, and that helped as well. Like creating the base of the community before leaving, and then going to AFI, also meeting people from the Mexican industry that were working both in Mexico City and Los Angeles. And I think that's really important.
Yeah.
It seems like Atlanta, New York, Mexico, Los Angeles, they're like these four, Sao Paulo, like these 5 cities of America. Well, we could count Toronto, we could count Vancouver, no? These cities are kind of like at the top of the game in the industry. I think America and the United States has like a bigger industry because it moves more money. But there's also a lot of money in these other places. I mean, in Canada, I'm sure it's pretty much like LA and New York and Atlanta, right? But in South America, the budgets and the reality of the industry is different numbers. Like, yeah, you'll have more box office because we have like a big population that actually goes to the cinema and will pay a ticket, besides SVOD and all of that. But the budgets for the films here, for the projects here, are actually way smaller. And it's also back to the malinchismo thing, because a Mexican film is very hard to compete with the box office with Marvel or with all these commercial films from America. So it's interesting to see from that point of view, not just like the art per se, but like the industry and the business part of what we do.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you really do touch on an important point there. And I mean, I've definitely experienced we don't call it that in Ecuador, obviously, malinchismo, but that there was a very big difference on how people treated me. Because I spent, when I graduated at FI, I spent a year back in Ecuador with my parents. And there was a definite difference on the way people treated me prior to going to FI and after getting that degree. And that was, in part because of, you went to study at this really prestigious American school and came back with this very prestigious degree. Like suddenly you're somehow worth more. And like that always bothered me a little bit, because I'm like, yes, I am a better DP because of this education. But I think there was a lot of emphasis put on like the value of that degree rather than like that experience I got, for sure.
I mean, that's prevalent all over the world. I'm from Asia, and there's some parts of Asia, you can talk about Korea, China, that there's like almost a glorification of the West, like an obsessive quality of like respect and reverence to all things that come from the West. Yeah. And that's the same thing, it's like a degree is a piece of paper. They don't care if what you studied there, right? Like I'll say like, I went to UCLA. It doesn't matter what I studied at UCLA. Yeah. Right? It's like, you went to a school there, and there's a certain level of, I don't know. I think it's a little fetishism.
Yeah. Yeah. It's very complex social issues, post-colonial trauma.
Yep.
Definitely. Yeah. I also see it changing, right? At least in parts of Asia is starting to change. And back to, talking about distribution and box office, we're seeing that model change too, right? Like the scope of production in Asia right now is the budgets are so big, right? And because people, like you say, people actually go to the box office. People will go to the theater. And China has the population right now, right? Like if you have millions of people go to the box office, then maybe that movie is worth more than, an American film that no one will go see in theaters and goes directly to streaming.
Well, bouncing off of that, with the increase of streaming services, because I know they've started investing in certain markets, particularly in Latin America and Mexico, or in Argentina. Netflix has started operating operations there. Do you feel that with the influx of that, there's like been more opportunities for you as a DP or as a filmmaker?
Definitely, yes. Like intrinsically, not only for me, right? For like the community of filmmakers in Mexico. For me personally, it's been kind of hard because a lot of the offers I get are for like operator or like now I'm getting other offers, but I haven't really landed a series. And I see a lot of cinematographers that I work with or that I'm friends with that are getting in, and it wasn't easy for them either, right? A lot of these operator gigs are really low paid in Netflix series Latin America.
Yeah.
So you're like accepting a rate that is way under what you should be doing or getting, working Monday through Saturday without stopping. So it's 6 days for, I don't know what they're offering now, but when the series in Latin America started, they were offering $1,000 a week or
yeah, that's really low.
Even.
Yeah.
Not even like $700 a week, or like we're talking about rates of $120 a day.
Yeah.
And obviously compared to other industries, this might sound kind of crazy and privileged, but the reality of how much you have to pay rent in Mexico and all of that, a lot of operators actually came together and were like, yo, we have to not accept this, because if we all accept this, then we're devaluing our work. And then the production companies realize like, oh, we have to actually pay better.
That's good.
So there was a movement there, right? Like a reaction to this, to these studios coming to Mexico, because it wasn't only Netflix; it was like Disney Plus and like other ones. And the more opportunities, yes, for sure. It's still been hard. When I founded the Amazonas Eléctricas, that we can like talk more about later, but we got like good offers for series. So that, I think that was great. Like 2 series have been worked by the Amazonas Eléctricas. I wasn't there. For example, when I was on the table, they like put the different EPs on the table and decide, right? I always feel I'm on the table with like amazing people and with great experience. And a lot of times like, oh, she doesn't have that series experience. Because I haven't wanted to take these operator jobs because they were so badly paid, and then I don't get the series, and sometimes it takes like one director or one producer to really fight for you. But like a lot of these jobs were the people who were getting them had already some series experience. And then the other thing that happened to me that was really hard at a personal level was like I got an offer for a Netflix film with a director that I respect and love and that have been dreaming about working with for years. And their timings were so crazy that when they called me and they were like, hey, the production's gonna start, these are the dates. That was like prep was starting, or like midway through my birth delivery date, right when I was pregnant. So I was like, whoa. It was the first time that it hit me, because I had been working until month 8 and I was operating and working, and I did lose a couple of jobs because I was pregnant. Specifically, that was like a tough thing that we've been working as women like in the industry, and yeah, it's changing, but in Mexico, the change is not like in LA. It's slower. The community is like really patriarchal and like very deep society issues. So lost a couple of jobs, kept working, shot a lot. Then at month 8, I was like, okay, I'm going to break. That's when I got the call for the film, had to say no.
Oh, no.
And it was like a duel for me, like, whoa, I would love this and I want to be a mom and I want to have a family. But it pains me that I had to say no, because I can't deliver my child and be on set, right?
Yeah.
I don't know. Everything happens for a reason. I think we should trust the flow. of the universe. And I don't know. A lot of people were like, no, it was a really bad experience. The film's not that good. And I was like, oh, you guys are just trying to make me feel better. But yeah, I mean, after giving birth and I go back to work, I got an offer for an indie feature in New York. That production really was very accommodating to the best of their possibilities to support me as a working mother in that situation. Mm. So when the baby was 2 months, I got back to work.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. And I have a lot of downtime, so I feel I've been able to be with her, but I don't want to accept a crappy paying job that's going to make me miss 2 months out of the first 3 years of my child's upbringing, you know?
Yeah.
So that's been also like another different type of challenge. But I feel like we can do it and we can do great things. Mm-hmm. And like the gaffer that when I founded the Amazonas, I was the gaffer. Mm-hmm. But then my we call best girl now in the Amazonas.
Nice.
She now is the main gaffer of the Amazonas.
Oh,
and he has 6 children.
Whoa.
Mom of 6 and badass gaffer, and she's done the 2 series. She's done some films, so a lot of commercials. And it's also been a learning curve for her in her process, as for all of us. But that inspires me. Or I don't know, like the DP of Marina, that was like an amazing film. Mm-hmm. She also has like 5 children. And then I start meeting all these moms that I'm like, oh, how cool. We can do it. Of course. Like, nothing's going to stop us. We'll just organize ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. Pt1 is a woman and Latina-owned boutique camera rental house based in Los Angeles. They are passionate about the nuanced design that goes into visual storytelling, and as such, are committed to supporting filmmakers tell their stories with the best tools available. Plus, for busy cinematographer or camera crew parents, they also offer childcare services during prep. So when you're looking for camera rentals for your next project, check out their extensive repertoire of optics and cameras at www.bcine.com or write to rentals@bcine.com for general inquiries. Well, let's talk about Amazonas Electricas. Like, speaking of disruptive things, I think that you founded this group, and it's in many ways, it's so unique in general as a thing, but also just it's so unique in Latin America because there's so few women who are either, in any way in the cinematography part. Like there's very few female crew members there even, so like I feel it's really extraordinary what you've done. Can you talk about what prompted you to create this group and what it is and what it does?
It really is amazing what you're saying, because it's so important that younger women have you in your community to look up to and to know that they can be a cinematographer.
Yeah. And
when we started the Amazonas Electricas, it kind of felt something like that. Like, there's nothing in Mexico that is actually helping women to feel comfortable to learn lighting and to use the equipment. I remember the first time I went into it was years back, but it kind of gives us a little backstory to give some context. Like, the first time I went into a G&E truck in Mexico when I was in because as a kid, I would really never go into the truck. It was always like full of smelly old men, Like, it was like, I would talk to everybody, but I mean, I think it wasn't like, I also like to being out in the space. Now, I was always taught like kind of not to trust some adults in a way, like always be careful. So I remember being like 23 years old and going into a grip truck and lighting truck, and they had like nudie posters of nude women posted like in their like little work area inside the truck. Mm-hmm. And I was like, oh, okay, like pornography here in the truck in a working environment. So I didn't say anything. I went off the truck, and I remember the next time I went in, it wasn't there.
Wow.
It seemed like my presence had altered, the fact that they had noticed that I had noticed. So that always was like an experience that I had lived, right? And I also felt that, like, of course, we're not gonna be feeling safe if the environment is bullying naked women and pornography on the, and not because anything is pornography. Like, there's limits, right? There's scopes. There's different erotica or whatever, and I mean, there's nothing wrong with a naked body woman, but it was the context that felt like, oh, this is like maybe not so comfortable for me. Right? So, and so when I think Free the Work and Free the Bid, Free the Work movement, really affected a lot of things. It kind of like sparked things in other countries, because the Alma Harrell kind of like teamed up with women in different countries, and then they were pushing that agenda each and in the different places. So the Mexican representative of Free the Work in Mexico is called Farida Shredded. She's an amazing director, really talented, really like visionary. And she had this campaign for Chrysler, by women, for women. And she hired Leslie Montero, that is a cinematographer in Mexico that works a lot, that is doing great. And we had met, and there was good chemistry. And I had told her, like, hey, I've been working as a gaffer in Los Angeles for the past couple of years, and I really love it. And if you would like me to work for you, please consider me. Because there's also that other thing about being boxed in. That's another layer, right? Like, oh, are you a cinematographer, or you're a gaffer, or you're an AC, or like, you can't be doing everything. It's like, why not? But okay, it's part of mastering your art, and it's very complex. I'm not gonna get into it, but there's that layer. So I get the call from Leslie, and she's like, yo, there's this project. We want you to gaff. We would love if you could bring G&E crew that will women. I was like, whoa, okay, because I hadn't done that. I was actually working with like a G&E group that I had worked with, but they were all men. And when I was gaffing, and I was like, this is like an amazing situation and challenge in a way. And like, let's do this. And I was like, let's bring them all together. So I had already been in contact some months before with this woman that was recommended to me by an AC that I work with a lot, that is amazing, from Venezuela, that also is like a up and coming cinematographer. And but she's kind of like stuck in the Buxton in the AC still. But she was like, you have to meet Annie, because she's like a good G&E swing in a way. In Mexico, we call them staff. It's like, you can do grip, you can do electric, you're a staff member. And then there's the gaffer, that is also sometimes the key grip, or sometimes that you have two. But it kind of works a little bit different from the LA kind of way or structure. So we got that job. I called Annie. I'm like, okay, let's do this. Let's come together. Let's meet these women, see what their experience is, how long they've been working for. Can they actually work safely on a set? Are they like that savvy, right? Like, and I knew there would be a lot of them that were savvy, but there's always like levels. And because in no way I was like putting them down, like, I just wanted to know what the experience was, because if we were going to work professionally at a high level for a big production company and campaign and client, it was like, okay, this is a lot of responsibility. we have to make a solid crew with people that actually have a lot of experience. I knew Annie had a lot of experience because she had been working for like big gaffers and on big shows. Mm-hmm. And then she had met a couple more. Then this other woman from Peru that was also doing it. And so we started like bringing everybody together and we were like, okay, let's do this first job. And it was great. Like the first job was amazing. It flowed. Everybody was freaking out. They were like, you need help carrying that Jenny. And we were like, get out of here. You know? What are you talking about help carrying this Jenny? Like, no, sir, please sit down. You might get hurt. So that job went amazing. And we didn't have that name back then. That was our first job. And then we were there. That started raining. We were working in a soccer field. We were like throwing line like in the rain. And I'm like carrying like super heavy equipment. And I'm like, these women are like, we're like Amazons, like warriors, you know? We're the electric Amazons. And they were clicked. And I was like, that's the name. So I took a bunch of pictures, created the Instagram, and then it boomed. It boomed. We kept meeting other women, rotating. Some women weren't really like wanting to work with us. Some were. We became this like super como platform for women, and everybody would write to us like, hey, can I learn with you? Can you teach me? Can I be your intern? Can I do this other thing, but can I help? Like the reaction of the industry and the community was amazing. And that was like 5 years ago, 2018. Got contacted by another DP, started working for him, started then networking. They met Annie. And then when I was like kind of getting more cinematographer jobs, I was like, but take Annie. Annie's good. You already know her, you know, like, and then the next best girl, that is Marilu, that was Annie's best girl. She's the daughter of a very experienced gaffer. She's like, you know what, guys, I'm ready. I want to be a gaffer. I got this job offer. And we were like, of course, go get it. You know, and now Maya, there's another gaffer that in the Amazonas that comes from the art department, that she jumped to Jenny when she saw we existed, because she was like, I always wanted to do this, but it was like super macho environment. I didn't feel safe. And it wasn't only me feeling like that in the truck, right? It was like the consensus of women. And it was the consensus. It was like, this is not a safe environment for women for us to learn in. And camera kind of became one. Like it was hard and still is. And we lived through, as a community of women, there's horrible stories. But it was kind of more open in a way. Like there was more women in camera. And in Mexico, the first cinematographer was Eliana Cárdenas. And then like... there was some other, como se llama, Isla Mercado, and like, and now there's more and more and more, but they were like the first ones pushing that. But there was always like women in camera, and in the Jenny crew, it was very hard to see them. And we're a big industry in a big city, like 24 million people city. Yeah. So, see, like we don't have the population of China for sure, because nobody has it. But as a city, it's like that type of like mass, you know, people. So the industry has a lot of jobs, and we ended up finding like 8 women. No, kind of like some wouldn't come. Like we've been 13, we've been 8, we've been, it's been in movement because then some women, I mean, it's complicated, like strong women working together. It's like, it also has its things we have to heal and learn of how to communicate with each other. In a Latin country, when they're like, oh, she's your competition. Right. She's not your sister. She's the one that's going to take your man. And that's very like that. The Mexico mentality. Yeah. So we have to restructure the sisterhood, you know, and heal it. And it's been a lot of work, and some people want to put in the work, some don't, and that's fine. And we've also hired other men and some like there, it's been very fluid, and it's been great because we've been able to share and kind of open that department to women. And yes, it hasn't been easy, but it's very controversial, but it's been amazing. Wow.
No, I think it sheds so much light on the need for more women working in grip and electric in particular, not just in Latin America, but I think overall in the world. I think
it's not available. It's not easy to get into Genie. You know, I don't know. There's like, if it's being gate kept or if it's just like a physicality thing, like why that is. It's just, I think a lot of people are intimidated by electricity. Maybe I don't know.
Also,
you know, and I think that those are just factors that it is intimidating. Getting into Genie is intimidating.
And it kind of feels like it comes from the families of men that it's like, I don't know which like industrial revolution, but like electricity, welding, all this skilled work has always been kind of like a men's thing, right? Yeah. There's very few women that have broken through that. And now it's opening more and more and more. We recently got invited to participate as the Amazonas Eléctricas in a documentary for that 3M is sponsoring, company 3M, and it's called Skilled. And it's a documentary about skilled work and women and people of como underrepresented communities. And so the three characters is like this like black young welder that loves what he does, but it was really hard for him to like break from the stigmas of his community and all the things he grew up with, and become like a proper welder and like maintain his family. And then the other character is this woman from Canada that she's like a safety officer for construction. And she's like the first and only woman doing that in Canada. And then the other character is Plumber Page, that she's amazing. She's writing books, she's teaching, and she loves her thing. And she's a Gen Z, so like really young American young woman, inspiring her community. And then the other two characters, the main character is Annie, because her story is amazing too. Like she used to be a stay-at-home mom and then discovered filmmaking. And like 10 years later, she's a gaffer for the Amazonas Eléctricas. So that was very transformational for her. Yeah. And then I'm in the documentary too, kind of talking about this movement and how important skilled work is in the film industry. Yeah. And that's a parenthesis. But going back to what we were talking about, the boys' clubs of skilled work is like, because our industry is kind of young, right? It's 130 years, 20 at the most. Yeah. And it kind of comes, it kind of, I can imagine that the first men doing that came from those industries and then slowly became the film industry, and then those families and the sons and Mexico and in the world is still like this. Like I remember Victoria Storado telling me that his Jenny crew is his family, like his brothers, his cousins, his nephews, and in Mexico the working gaffers are families as well, or like communities of men, but that are very like, oh yeah, my grandpa was a gaffer, and my father is a gaffer. And in the Amazonas Eléctricas, we have two members that their fathers are gaffers or electrics, or that are married to gaffers and electrics. So it's really interesting also to see the women that are, and then there's women that come from like different backgrounds or like that, and that they did the jump and that they're in now. But it's definitely been hard for women, and I feel really proud of all the women that have reached out to us and really used the platform to like from that inspiration, but actually putting it into action and learning and growing and going out there and making good money doing what they like to do.
Love what we've been focusing on in this interview? What about the angle we've been taking? Have you found it illuminating? Help us power our community by going to icscfilm.com/friends and making a donation today. We're an all-volunteer group, and your support will help us keep our website rolling, our events lit, and our podcast punny. Okay, maybe the last one's free, but we do need your help for everything else. And don't forget to subscribe. Pivoting a little bit more back to you, what is something you wish you knew when you were starting out? Like, what would you tell, 23-year-old Sophia?
That's a good one. I think one important thing would be learn the equipment, but focus more on the on the soul of the stories.
How interesting. Our last guest said almost identical the same.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
It's collective consciousness.
Yeah.
Shared experience. Because the technology in the industry and the prosumer phase of filmmaking, when you don't have money or big projects to work in, you kind of get caught up in this the latest equipment, the 4K, the no sé qué, the 6K, and it's pretty overwhelming. And it's crazy because especially us coming from AFI and all of that, it's we know every camera. You have to learn them. And we're always learning new lenses because there's a bunch. You have to use one set of every job to actually, or test each set it's a lot of work, and we can see other tests, but you doing your own testing, coming to your own conclusion takes time. But I feel in a way, because of this marketing and because of this need to be I need to start shooting now. We kind of get a little bit distracted sometimes about the equipment. And I feel that with the years, for me personally, was realizing, because I always knew story was important, but I never realized until later, I think, the importance of each, the responsibility that comes with telling a story, with one of the things. Definitely the representation, or the talking from your own experience or your own culture. Then there's that's kind of new in a way. I mean, not new, but now there's more consciousness and respect about when you're portraying another person's culture or another culture that is not your own. That responsibility, I think, when I was in my 20s, that wasn't a social issue like it is now, or cultural appropriation or those concepts. And I think it's consciousness and respect and a lot of things that we have to have present when we're choosing and telling stories. And I really wish that more people we could it's because it's hard because you don't want to censor anything, right? But there's also all this commercial feeding the the vainest parts of our humanity. Mm-hmm. And what are we teaching the kids with this content? What are we teaching ourselves? What are we feeding our souls? And it's so, because it's not the same when we're talking about art house cinema or those tendencies, or horror films, or that when we're talking about I don't know, all these modern soap operas and series.
Yeah.
So I think I would tell myself that just check your heart and check your morals compass when choosing and telling stories, and do it respectfully. And I think it takes time traveling and meeting people and learning from these other communities, or even from the American community in that sense. There's a lot that I really appreciate from American culture. I know like it's controversial, but like I really appreciate that American culture is pushing the pronouns, because that inspires my community to push it. And I really love the inclusion agenda that I wish it was like faster, but because then that pushes the rest of the world to do it as well. But that's something that now we have learned that I wish I could have told my 23-year-old self.
And I think that's really beautifully put. Let's, speaking of storytelling and feeding our souls, let's manifest. If you could shoot anything in the world, anything at all, what would it be and why?
You go first. I would love to hear what you guys have to say about that. It's a hard one, but no sé. It's I think it's like definitely magical stories that inspire people to connect with Mother Earth and like nurture, respect, and it sounds really hippie. But yeah, like to kind of inspire everybody to be like kinder, and maybe films that can help us heal the traumas and inspire us to move past that.
We're going to take a little break, and we'll be back in a few days with part 2.
Thank you so much for listening today. Please follow us on Instagram at the ICFC. You can also reach us by writing to icfcpodcast@gmail.com.
Make sure to tune in for part 2 of our interview with Sophia Stieglitz. This episode was produced by Emilia Mendieta Cordova, Fabian Hausepian, Akina Van de Velde, Senda Bonet, and Barbie Lung.